Okie dokie. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to close this up here. Good evening again, everybody. Welcome to the first meeting of the 2023 new year for the Clarksburg High School PTSA. And welcome. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to joining us here this evening. Hopefully this will be a great and impactful meeting to you all. If not, please do not hesitate to just let us know so we can understand how we can make it better. As always, we are going to start with the PTSA mission statement, and that is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. We have quite a packed meeting today. I have shared the agenda to all of the PTSA members. So again, as always, the agenda, we're going to review the meeting minutes that we have shared, the current openings within the PTSA, report of officers, Principals Connect, we're actually not doing because Mr. Wusu is not here today. Committee reports, delegate reports, cluster coordinator reports. I believe the delegate report we're not doing because our delegate is not on today. Some old business, new business action items, and then we're going to adjourn the meeting at about 7:30, 7:45. So we're going to try to make the meeting flow well. At about 7:30, 7:45, we are going to be joined by Amy Smith. She is the editor-in-chief of Power Hour Editing, and we will be going over the college essay. She's going to do a brief overview of the college essay. And for all of us who are still underclassmen, maybe some seniors, that is an important part of the college admissions process. And I fully believe it is a challenge for all of us because I'm getting a headache just thinking about it. So hopefully this will be a great meeting for you all. And just to confirm, Carson, as you are one of the membership chairs, we do have 10 participants, myself included in the call, 11 now with Mr. Sharif Kadir, and I believe we are at quorum, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Want to make sure that if you could kindly double check, if possible, if the participants are also the members, majority of them are members. If there are no members on here, that is completely fine. Just be mindful that members are the ones who can vote in the meetings. So if there's no further questions or additions to the agenda, I am going to motion for this to be approved and accepted. Please note that at 7:08, no concerns, right? Objections. Okie dokie. Thank you so much. Oh, and please, Madam Secretary, you are ready to take notes, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So 7:08, agenda is approved. We have the next line item is the meeting minutes. This is the meeting minutes from our board meeting 12/14/2022. The meeting minutes is here. We have shared it. Let me share it really quick as well on the chat. If there are no objections or concerns about the board meetings, we are going to motion for them to be approved. I cannot add this. Okay, there we go. Can this be clicked? Yes, it can. No, it cannot. Hold on. My apologies. That cannot be clicked. Bear with me one moment. Copy. Okay, there we go. So I do not hear any objections to the meeting minutes. So please, Madam Secretary, note at 7:09 p.m. we have approved the meeting minutes from 12/14/2022. And we are going to continue onwards. Just going briefly over some positions that are still open. Apart from this, we do have one more delegate position open. If anyone would like to join the delegate team with Laura and Moore. We have some committee chairs, just faculty and student engagement, and a faculty rep and a student rep. I believe these are as valuable and important for us to be able to really understand the concerns in Clarksburg High School because we're not there every day, unlike the faculties or the student representatives. So if you know anybody, or if you would like to join, if you want to volunteer your student to join, they will get SSL hours. But this is an important one, so they can be like our liaisons, our connections to the school. Any input or questions about this particular section here? I do not see any, so I am going to continue forward. I'm going to put this on the side. So next is the report of officers. So it should be just myself and the treasurer. So the report of officers, I need to put this somewhere else. So since our last meeting in November, we have reached out to MCPD and the Mothers Against Destructive Decisions for the Substance Misuse Overuse Assembly at CHS. We do have to provide Mr. Owusu with the dates for this by this week, so the teachers can have their proper planning set up for the next quarter. And so we're thinking about doing this about around April after, when is it, after spring break. So it'll be around April after spring break. As cluster coordinator, we've also met with area PTA presidents and also cluster principals. We have discussed opportunities to support the students in the cluster schools from elementary, middle school to the high schools. One of the items we talked about was supportive tutoring by the high school students who are in the national honor societies or the math honor societies to elementary schools and middle school students who are in need of support. We did hear of a school that had fourth graders who were really struggling with math, especially multiplications. So hopefully if you have any input as to how we can provide support to them, please do share so we can connect with the respective schools and give them the supports that they need. We were also thinking of a cluster fair, but after further discussions with the principals as well as the after prom team, the fact that our cluster is huge, we have a lot of elementary schools and in the cluster and then just 2 middle schools, it made the logistics Can you hear me?
Can hear you now, Nadia. Try again.
Yeah, now I can.
Oh, sorry. The internet is not stable up here. So which part did you not hear? Sorry.
The last thing I heard was when you said that we couldn't do it, the logistics were too difficult due to the size of the cluster.
Okay. Yeah, so at least you got the big part of it, but I think the last part that I was trying to say is that if anyone has any ideas on how we can create or implement a cluster fair festival of some sorts at the high school that can incorporate all the cluster schools, please let us know so we can make sure it happens. I'm going to admit Amy Smith. Welcome, Amy. I don't think her, so welcome, Amy. Thank you for joining in. We're just going through the meeting here. And yes, so if you have anyone have any input about any of these possibilities, please let us know, because our cluster schools are a vital part of the high school. And so we want to make sure they're all supported, whether they're in elementary, middle school, and so forth. The next line item is from the treasurer. Miss Nadia B, did you want to just speak here what we've been processing so far? And I think she's in the basketball game, so I will speak on this. I forgot she was in the basketball game. So the available balance as of 1/17/2023 is $4,645.68. We deposited $438 today. And then we transferred from PayPal for the cookie exchange $528.02. So this is all the available balance, the updates we have here so far from the treasurer. Any questions at all of the report of officers? Now, hopefully you can still hear me. I'm thinking no questions. I'm going to continue forward. Mr. Wusu is not able to be here today, so this is postponed until next month. Carson, did you want to go over the membership?
Sure. We're still at 131. We're going to be doing a membership drive in the next few months in kind of support of our after prom activities that are coming up. So there'll be more information available about the time and place for that, but we'll probably end up doing a similar raffle that we did previously. As you can see here, if we wanted to fully fund our budget based off all the activities that we fund throughout the year, we need 1,300 members. So we don't anticipate to get there, but every member counts as far as, getting ever so close to that number. But definitely looking for other ways to supplement our budget through different types of fundraising activities that we'll hear more about later. But let me know if anybody has any questions.
I just want to say you and Angela are doing a great job, because look, even though the teachers are still we have somewhat of an opportunity with the teachers from 2021 to 2022 from those school years, but the parents and the students, they showed quite a bit of an increase, right? And overall is still an increase at about 7%. So this is great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So
yeah, and it's still middle of the year.
Exactly. Yeah. So keep on trucking. So yeah, but also open to any ideas anybody has about improving membership as far as, getting the word out. We definitely, there's an opportunity when you sign up for membership to donate more money as well. So we'll be pushing that as part of after prom and advertising for other activities. So yeah, so hopefully that number will continue to increase.
Yay. Thank you, Carson. Any questions at all before we continue onwards? Okie we're going to continue onwards. Thank you for the report there, Ms. Carson. The delegate report, I don't think Lauren is on here right now. That's clearly fine. So we are not able to do the delegate report. We'll do it for February. So the cluster coordinator report, this needs to be updated, sorry. Minnie Varghese is the area VP. And then Teddy Wu is the cluster coordinator. He is president of Snowden Farms. And then myself is cluster coordinator as well. So these are your 3 cluster coordinators. I think it's 2. We still have an opening for 1 more. And then we have the area VP. So the report that's been updated so far, I need to change this to January 17th, 2023. Apologies, all I thought I caught everything. So the cluster news and information, the first one is family forum on fentanyl on January 28th at 9:30 a.m. at CHS. Free lunch for all students, advocacy opportunity. And then as well, an opportunity from MCC PTA for volunteers to advocate for apprenticeships. Okay, I'm not saying that right. Apprenticeships. Did I say that right? I've been speaking all day. My apologies. So the first one, family forum on fentanyl, January 28th, 9:30 a.m. at CHS. I signed up for this, y'all. So hopefully you all can sign up for this too. I feel very strongly about awareness of substances, especially fentanyl, just because fentanyl is now pretty much in almost all of these concerning substances that are out there that just proliferating around our communities, because it's also laced in the marijuana. It can also be laced in caffeine pills. So I've actually told my son, I'm like, do not buy anything from anybody online. Just no, you have to go through me. But Montgomery Goes Purple is partnering with the MCC PTA Substance Use Prevention Committee, MCPS Chief Health Officer, Dr. Patricia Kapunen, and her staff, along with many other community partners, to host a family forum on fentanyl on January 28th. Please read the message from Dr. Kapunen and watch this video about the forum. I'm just going to share this here if I can. And then we know that prevention and recovery require extraordinary efforts all day and every day. And that is why we asked our partners and you to join us for this event. Any questions first about this particular forum? Let me click this. Here is the YouTube Dr. Kapunan's video. Okay. Have you all had the chance to sign up for the meeting there? Y'all are still seeing the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
there.
Okay. So I'm trying to find that link there so you can join the Sentinel presentation. The forum, I believe, is supposed to run from 9:30 to about, let me just see here. Let me share this here. It should be like about maybe 2 hours, but don't quote me on that, Karen. Hold on 1 second. Ah, where is this? Station. Wrong one. Bear with me 1 moment. Any questions so far about this? Says 9:30 till 11:30. Okay. And I have shared the information about this through social media as well as through the member hub communication. I will share it again so you all can have it in case you would like to jump on and sign on for that meeting. And then let me continue forward here. The next line item is free lunch for all students. So the teachers union is advocating for free lunch for all students. One concern that was raised was the farms applications dropped during the years when MCPS offered universal free lunches. And that was mainly because there was no requirement to apply because meals were just given. So MCPS was not as active to get those applications in. And especially even when we were returning to the in-person and schools were all being opened, there was not so much of a push or a need to get that process, which then resulted in a negative impact on federal funding and focused school status. So we're trying to advocate that the MCEA is trying to advocate that all students should have free lunches. So that's a process that they're working on. If you'd like to get more information on that, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and let us know. The next one here is that MCCPTA needs volunteers to advocate for apprenticeships. MCPS's operating budget includes so much on career training and apprenticeships, and these programs are such an important component to maintaining student enrollment at the secondary level, especially right now when students' interest in schools has been at an all-time low after distance learning. So the MCCPTA Curriculum Committee Chair Evelyn Chung would love to recruit some folks to her committee to stay on top of these programs in the same way we have leads on multilingual learning, ELA, and science. So if we have quite a few MCCPTA members to take this on, she will ask MCPS if they can create a stakeholder curriculum advisory committee to address career training and apprenticeship programs, and then appoint these individuals to be our representatives. So these are a few of the updates from the clusters. We also will have, I actually will have to be in a meeting tomorrow at Snowden Farm Elementary as a cluster coordinator, and that is with the area director, Mr. Christoph Turk. And then we would also have monthly or so meetings with the cluster principals. So if you have any concerns or questions that would like to be addressed, that have some input that can support the growth and the development of the clusters and the cluster schools, please do not hesitate to let us know. Any questions about the cluster coordinator reports? If not, we're going to continue onwards. So the old business we're going to talk about is after prom. So just want to let you all know, after prom received a grant from the Montgomery County Collaboration Council in the amount of $2,000. Woo! One of the stipulations of the grant, in which we're already doing, is to have the substance misuse and overuse awareness programs that would be targeted at students specifically. So last year we had that. Ooh, sorry, let me add this. Last year we had that event virtually, where we had the Mothers Against Destructive Decisions rep, as well as a special guest speaker from them, a survivor of substance misuse and overuse. They were speaking, and it was a very profound experience. And so we would love to invite them back to also share this directly with the students, as well as MCPD presenting their presentations directly to the students as well, to a greater audience. And so hopefully the students will become more aware and be able to make better decisions whenever they're faced with the opportunity to either choose a substance or not to choose a substance. So we hope we can get that together. So if you would like to join the after prom meetings, it is held every other Sunday. So our last meeting was January 15th, 2023. And the next meeting will be January 29th, 2023, and it's around 7:30 p.m. Another update about after prom is we've connected with Mid-Atlantic Adventures. We signed the contracts. I already said this here. We signed the contracts. We just need to submit the deposit. The hypnotist is reserved for May 6th or May 5th, because after prom is now on May 5th. After prom will start from 11 p.m. until about 3 a.m. We have also connected with the prom team. We don't want to share too much about what's going on with prom because that would be from the school. But we've connected with the prom team. They have asked us for support for prom. So hopefully all of the parents here, especially the underclassmen parents, will be able to support, because a lot of the upperclassmen parents they will be supporting, but at the time from like 6 p.m. until about, I don't know, 7 or 8 or so, they may want to, take their photos of their students if their students are attending prom. So our tentative theme for after prom is either Magical Carnival, Hollywood Stars, or Secret Garden. The prom theme is Night Amongst the Stars. We do still need we're working to building our team. We have worked on a tentative budget, and we're working out timeframes here. So sorry, the first meeting we had was in November. And we're working on seeing if we can still do the state farm grants, working with sponsors and individual contributors. If anyone has any input as well, please do not hesitate to let us know. Finally, the new business, we will start the individual donation fundraiser for after prom by the end of, not this week, it'll be next week. We're working on Valentine's Day staff appreciation, which is cookies and fruits. We've reached out to Harris Teeter. All they're asking of us is to put a request in our company letterhead, which is the CHS PTSA, and submit that through to get that approved by them. We're working with, so Sonali was able to connect with tutor doctors to do SAT mock exam in February. There may be other stuff in the works, but this is what we have fully confirmed as of right now. And if you have any ideas on how we can further support the school and our communities, please do not hesitate to let us know. Ooh. Yes, and please encourage your students to fill out the after prom survey. We did have updates, Stephanie, but I think we have like 12. Let me see. All right. Ah. Let's see, the next one, action items. We will need to, again, reach out to MCPD. I did reach out to them. They have not responded yet, so I will bug them again. We need to connect with the community partners for overall fundraisers for the PTSA and as well as our various programs. Connect with the community partners to establish, implement programs that further supports the students and overall CHS community. The next PTSA meeting is February 21st, 2023. Please let us know what you would like as a special topic. Like for instance, today, our special topic is around the college essay, which is an integral and critical part of the college admissions process. So any questions, any input as to what could be the next special topic, please let us know. This is our email. I remember it, Clarksburg High School.ptsa@gmail.com. I spelled that right? Yes, I did. Okay. We love all your input. We'd appreciate your feedback. Please do let us know. And without further ado, I think I timed this well, Amy. It is now time for the special topics. So Trinine, if you could kindly note that our meeting has ended at 7:32 p.m. And then the next topic is the college essay overview with Amy Smith.
And Nadia, do you mind making me the co-host so I can share my slide?
Oh, yes. And bear with me one moment. Let me also do my introductions of you. Let me just do that here. Yes, thank you for the reminder.
Sure.
My apologies. Let me stop my share here really quick. I think that's it for my slides. Okay, let me stop sharing. Bear with me one moment. All. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Miss Amy Smith. And Amy Kossoff-Smith is the owner of Power Hour Editing and uses her journalism and PR experience to help students find and amplify their own unique voices. She has an extensive track record in coaching students to get to the heart of the story, fast to communicate messaging to stand out in the competitive admissions process. Amy graduated in the top 10% of her class from Northwestern's Meadow School of Journalism. Her article on offbeat tactics students used to catch the eye of admissions officers won first place in the William Randolph Hearst Pulitzers of College Journalism contest. Yay! Featured on the Today Show, ABC National News, and in the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, Amy is a prior national winner columnist. She authored an essay in Knowing Pains, Women on Love, Sex and Work in Our 40s, was featured in I Love Mondays and Other Confessions from Devoted Working Moms. Amy presented at DEGY's College Education and Entertainment Summit and was an invited panelist at the Association for Education in Journalism and Mass Communication Conference. She is also a frequent speaker at schools on the writing process. She has been married for 27 years to her lovely husband, Mitch, has 3 sons, and she graduated from who has graduated from Vanderbilt, Duke, and is a junior at the University of South Carolina. So thank you and welcome, Amy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so is everyone virtual or is anyone in the media center?
They are all virtual because Mr. Russo is not able to come today. And so it would have been a challenge to do the hybrid because he helps me with the hybrid. So I was like, I don't know if I can do it. So I had to send out last minute information, say it's all virtual.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to be here. And you are the very first school to see this new presentation. And it is sort of, if you've seen me talk before, you may or may not have at Clarksburg. I've been there many times and I love speaking to your school community. I was speaking to Nadia this afternoon and just saying that I find that juniors, I know we have a lot of juniors and junior parents here. A lot of times at this point in the year, people aren't really so excited to dig into the entire process. So I put together something that I think will help you, regardless of the grade you're in, sort of think about how to jump in a way that isn't going to overwhelm you. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about tonight. And I did put a link in the chat if you'd like. I do have some follow-up materials that I'll send out. I'll reference some of it during the presentation, but I'll send a bunch of worksheets and things that I've collected. And Nadia, are you going to let in the waiting room? Because I know that I'm the co-host, so hopefully that's popping up on your screen too. Okay, sorry, got distracted. So this is what we'll talk about tonight. So we're going to talk about how to get Common App ready. I'll tell you a little bit about why it's so important to put a timeline together for your college planning. I'll explain where words will matter on your applications. I'll talk a little bit about the COVID-19 effect, what I call a wow factor. This is a term I coined that really is all about setting yourself apart. I'll show you the essay prompts, and I've got a little update on that as well, and then talk to you about what you can do now. Okay, so if you have any questions, you're welcome to put it in the chat. I will be speeding through this, explaining this really quickly, and then I'll leave time for questions at the end. I know it's being recorded just in case anyone isn't here tonight or you want to watch it again. That's great. The other thing that I'll mention is if you're welcome to interrupt me during the presentation, no problem, or we can go over questions at the end. Okay. So here's what I typically hear from students at the beginning of the college process. They want to know what to expect, how to start, what to write, how to get creative, be a great storyteller. And this was something one student put on a survey: convey my personality and character. I highlighted that for a reason, and I'm going to tell you about that at the end. Okay, that's a very important word. Okay, so you heard about me, basically background in journalism and PR, combining that in the college process. That's kind of where I come to the party from. Now, I started collecting logos of schools that my students have gotten into. And I realized so many students stress out in the beginning saying, I have to go to this school or that school, or if I don't get into this school, it's going to be a terrible thing. There are so many colleges, and this isn't even everything, because I just have someone who got into the Merchant Marine Academy 2 weeks ago. So there are always colleges being added, but you can see there are so many colleges, and there definitely is a college for everyone. So don't worry about that. So let's sort of talk about how you can create your story for success. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how can you get Common App ready? Now, there are two main portals. The Common App is the main application portal. And basically, it is live now for the class of 2023. For the class of 2024 and forward, basically each year on August 1st, this portal goes live. Okay, so they'll take it offline in July, they'll put it back on for the next batch of applicants. So they can make minor changes. I like to attend counselor seminars to hear what's new, what's not. There haven't been dramatic changes. I wrote a blog post, if you want to look at my blog, but there were some minor changes this year, some good changes. But basically, this is sort of big picture what you want to start collecting at this point, especially if you're a junior. And I have a worksheet I'll send out from the Common App that gets into a little more detail. But you get to list activities that you've done throughout high school, up to 10. You can list academic honors, up to 5. Some people have less, so don't worry. You can have more, you can have less. If you have more, you need to do some creative combining. There are other ways you could report more than these, but this is sort of the maximum number that you can report. Okay. It's a good idea to get an unofficial transcript from your school. I say that because it's nice to meet the registrar. That's someone who is at your school. That's the person who will be sending a copy of the classes and grades you've taken in high school. So I like to tell students, get an unofficial transcript and take a look at it. If there are any errors, identify it early. That's a good thing to have on hand, because many schools will ask you to input your classes also into the application. So it's good to have a copy of that. Also, if you've taken the SAT or ACT, it's a good idea to have a copy of those test scores and dates. And then there's some personal family information they'll be asking you on the application. And I'll send a worksheet to anyone who wants, explaining all the different things there. Nothing too major. The Common App is not that complicated, so don't stress out. It really is not. People get overwhelmed, but it's not that hard. Okay. And then the next thing I want to talk about a little more is create a timeline that works for you. This is a critical piece of the process. Now, why is a timeline important? So do you see on the left side of the screen this whack-a-mole? Have you guys played that at the beach or, beach towns where you're like whacking things as they come up like this? This is a little bit what the college application process reminds me of, because things kept popping that you have to take care of. So it's a great idea to whack each mole as it pops, okay? And there are ways that you can do that. I'm going to be explaining, regardless of the grade you're in, what you can do to start hitting some of those points, okay? The bottom line is there are a lot of moving parts in the college application process. And sometimes there are things that change, and sometimes there are things that as you get into your personal process, you realize you need to look into further. Sometimes I meet with students and they say, I'll be asking them questions about certain activities. How much money did you raise? How many members did you recruit? And they say, well, I'd have to get back to my teacher sponsor. So you want to realize that you want to kind of get a grip of all the different things you need to do so you can start tackling them one at a time. You also have to navigate your college applications with your sports, summer, and other schedule, vacation, travel, whatever it is, okay? The other thing that a timeline really is great for, it keeps you on track and your parents informed, which I find is an extremely helpful thing to do. In fact, I think that students who have a great timeline, sometimes there's a little bit of stress at home where the parents are saying, what have you done? Are you on track? And I tell my students and my parents who I work with, the student should really be in charge of the plan and be asking the parents for support when they need it. These are kids we're ready to launch into independent living in dorms or apartments, and we want to give them great ways to thrive on their own. Okay. The other thing is creativity doesn't happen in a rush. I really believe that creativity happens when you give it a little bit of time, a little bit of love to sort of happen gradually. Because what happens is you'll have a great idea, and then I'm sure you've seen this in other creative pursuits. And a couple weeks later, you think, here's another support point I could add to that. And I do find that the students who stretch the process a bit and do start early tend to do the best. And it avoids the last minute crunch. So I do a survey every year with my private coaching students. And I've mentioned this in every presentation I give. I started to notice the first few years I was doing this survey, all of my students were giving the same exact tip in terms of the number one tip they had for future applicants for the next class of students was start early. They all wish that they had sort of put time on their side. So I definitely encourage you. The good news is for juniors, you guys do not need to stress. You're plenty early. You can get started now and you will be fine. You've got time to take it slowly. Okay, so in a competitive situation, words definitely matter. So these are the parts of the application where you will be encountering words or writing. There's the activity section, which I'll mention in a second, main essay, supplements. There's a COVID-19 question we've seen in the past 3 admission cycles. I don't yet know if they'll be repeating it, but I'll explain that as well. Email correspondence. Sometimes my students decide to email to demonstrate their interest, to ask questions. And again, that's writing. You want to make sure that that's clean. The application itself has some writing. And then there is an additional information section on the Common App that is totally optional. That's where students explain something like an injury, an illness that took them out of school, a grade that kind of dipped. It wasn't exactly representative of their overall academic picture, a death in the family, or just anything that happened that was personal to them that they feel isn't explained on the transcript and they feel needs some explanation. So you do have a section to do that. And then we have test scores. So I've crossed that out because I'm sure you've all heard, there's this huge test optional wave. There are many schools that now you can apply without a test score. So my advice to my students, many of them will say, well, so should I not take a test score? And my answer is, it depends. If you plan to apply to some of the state schools require a test score and there's nothing they can do about it. It's mandated by the state. There are other schools that aren't dropping it. There are other schools that are doing what we call test blind, which means even if you submit a test score, they're not looking at it. So my advice is this: study for the test, take the test, try to do as well as you can on the test. And if for some reason you are not a good test taker or you get anxious in a test setting, you don't need to stress anymore, because there are definitely options now where you can apply to college without a test score. But let's say you look at this puzzle on the left side of the screen and you see all the different pieces that go into your college application. If the test score drops out, everything else becomes a little more important. So you want to make sure that you do put strong emphasis in the writing that you present to colleges. We are hearing that it is making a difference. So what should you do? You want to communicate your wow factor. That's a term that I coined to basically say, what is it that you can say about yourself, your accomplishments, your track record, your achievements that no other student can really say in quite the same way as you? That is your wow. That is your brag. If you're in 9th or 10th grade, or you're a parent of a 9th or 10th grader, start taking notes about activities and honors. I do find that my seniors come to the party late and they say, oh, I don't remember exactly what I did. Or we're having a conversation and we're talking about certain things, and they'll mention something and I'll say, wait a minute, you didn't tell me you were a fishing champion, or, something they'll say. We tend to forget what we do. So take notes so you don't forget. Now let's talk for a minute about the activity list. I'm really breezing through this very quickly because each one of these I could take a full hour on, but I want to really give you the full picture tonight. So the activity list on the application, I think, is as important as the main essay. This is where you're telling the story of yourself over time. We do find that students who are engaged, committed, giving to the community in high school tend to be the same in college. And those are the kinds of students that colleges want to have on their campus. So again, you can report up to eight to 10 max. Colleges tend to look for what we call deep dives or logical combinations. Now, that's not to say if you're all over the place and you're an explorer and you've done all kinds of different things, that's good too. But you're telling a story here. Okay, so for example, if you're a varsity swimmer and you also were a swim coach and you also donated bathing suits to help kids in other countries who couldn't afford bathing suits, that's interesting. That's a student who really did a lot in their channel, but in different channels. Okay, so again, think about that activity list. It is very important. Okay, so we're not going to talk about these next two slides. This is something we will go in depth into this spring, because I find that it's a little bit early to talk to students about it in the junior year. But I made a commitment. I will come back in the spring and I'll go through all of this. I've got my do's and don'ts in terms of what you want to focus on in the college essay. Okay, let's talk about the main essay for a minute. Now, last year they confirmed the main essay prompts. You're writing one essay, by the way. Don't get scared. I know you see a lot of questions. Last few years, I can't remember when it wasn't 650 words, you're writing one main essay, and these are just prompts to pull out your idea. They tend to switch these out a little bit. So if you see it crossed out, that means it used to be a question that they took away, but it's still a good question because we do have a free choice. Okay, it is pending for the class of 2024. I just talked to the Common App yesterday. They said we're working on it. I looked at my calendar last year. They confirmed it on January 27th. So I think soon we'll have the prompts. Okay, but these are basically what they've asked the last few years. And there's always a free choice question. So let's say I didn't show you the main essay prompts. Sorry about that. The main essay is basically tell me a story about you. What's your biggest headline? What is it that makes you special and unique? I have seen students write about everything under the sun. There's no topic that's off limits. Sometimes we hear certain topics that you want to be careful about because maybe they're very popular in the teenage community. But even those, if you do it in a creative way, you can be successful. Okay. Let's talk about the COVID effect, the COVID question. Now, for the past 3 admission cycles, there was this COVID question. It's basically, COVID happened, how are you impacted? Now, as time goes on, the pandemic has represented a larger percentage of students' high school experience, okay? So in a way, this past year, when I had parents and students say, do I have to answer it? Do I not? My answer is, if you have something significant to say, go for it. If it's going to be the same thing that any teenager could say, things like, I was so upset that my sport was canceled. I didn't like online learning. These are common, okay? Things that you could say that are different. When the pandemic hit, I had extra family responsibilities. We have an elderly grandparent living with us, and I had to spend 15 hours a week caring for my elderly grandparent because my parents work full time, and that affected my grades. That is a unique circumstance. I'm just making this up as I'm talking, by the way, okay? Or if you started a new activity. I had some students who sold signs for, lawn signs, and they were giving the money to first responders. I have other students who are doing crafts and donating them to hospitals. So that's interesting. And that may be something you choose to talk about, but it's very optional. I don't know if they'll repeat it again on the next admission cycle. I personally would like them to just to merge it into this additional info, because that's what I see it as at this point, additional info. Now, in terms of the COVID question, should it return? Each college may interpret it differently. Again, I don't want to see college essays that are only about COVID because that is a fraction of your life. Okay. It's not your number one headline, but it may be a part of your story. I do have many students who, in the past couple of years, there was a sentence or two in the main essay, something that happened during the pandemic. It was a part of their story, but it wasn't their entire essay. Okay. Other things we've seen as a result of the pandemic, basically what we're seeing is a pretty dramatic increase in the number of applications submitted and the number of applications per student. I personally really am not comfortable with this, I'll be honest. Even though I always tell my students, I'm in the business of editing essays. So the more essays I edit, the more money I make, right? That's my job. However, I want what's best for my students. And I'm going to talk to you in a minute about that. I have something very important I want to share with you on that point. I don't think it's healthy for students to apply to an extreme number of schools. I don't think it's good for the system. We've overloaded the admissions offices. They didn't increase staff, so they're overloaded. So what we're seeing is more students are taking gap years. More students are being deferred. Because more students are applying test optional, guess what? They can apply to more schools now. The Common App makes it very easy to do that. Okay. So again, I do hope we'll see the tides turn on this a bit or them cap the number of schools students can apply to. But for now, that is what I'm seeing. Now, what do admissions officers want to see? So I've highlighted here, they really are looking for authenticity. They are looking for the real you, the real authentic story, what makes you unique. Okay. I've had students write about everything from shoes to fishing to just thinking of broad topics. There's confidentiality with every single one of my students. So I only talk about specific examples when they expressly tell me in this end of season survey that I can share. So I'm not mentioning specific names. I'm just remembering some topics that were approved to share. I've seen students write about different food topics, either comparing themselves to a type of food or talking about a food they're obsessed with and why this reflects who they are. Okay. UMD, University of Maryland, College Park. I love this quote. He said in an admissions seminar I attended a couple of years ago, it's the dessert of the entire meal. He said, I like to read the entire application first and then the writing. So guess what, students? You are about to serve dessert. It's great. I mean, you're serving a treat to the admissions office. So really take advantage of that and know that it's really a tremendous opportunity for you. The last quote I love, this is from University of Georgia. They said, your everyday experience can be great. It does not have to be tragedy or triumph. I like to get a genuine, heartfelt, honest feel for the person who writes the essay. I love that too, because again, sometimes students will say, I didn't do anything big. And I'll say, I just don't believe that. And by the end of the conversation, we've discovered something really cool and unique. So don't worry, you don't have to have cured a disease or raised $1 gazillion. Students with all kinds of activities, backgrounds, interests, they all get into college somewhere. Okay, there's also something called the supplements. Now, these are additional questions that schools may or may not ask. There are always schools that do not have any supplements. There are schools who have short supplements, like UMD tends to ask this, complete the sentence. So you see in pink, that's my example of an answer. It's 2 lines. It's not that big of a deal. You can really have fun with that. Then you have schools like, and it runs the gamut, okay? But University of Michigan, they have 2 supplements every year. What community are you in? And why do you want to come to Michigan? Now, I like to present the Michigan supplements for a couple reasons. Every student belongs to many different communities and or groups. You can be creative. You don't have to pick one of the examples they gave. I had one student say, I'm in the community of optimists, and he talked about how he was so optimistic about everything, and it was really a cool essay. The second essay here under Michigan, why Michigan? That is a very common supplemental question. Many colleges ask it. So I do encourage you, as you're building your college lists junior year, you think about, why do I want to go to each school? If you have a good reason why you want to go to each college, it makes your writing much easier, especially when you're asked why. Okay. All righty. I haven't checked the chat. I'll have Nadia. Oh, someone asked, but then your GPA has to be higher if test scores are optional. So that is not necessarily true. The colleges are evaluating the entire package. So colleges do have sort of average GPAs that they accept. You can see that on their admissions profile, but it's not a definite, it's not necessarily saying if you don't submit a test score, you have to have this. It's just certain schools have agreed that they are willing to be test optional or test blind. There's a great website called fairtest.org that you can check, and that shows you all the different colleges who are test optional or test blind. And I'm happy to put that in the, yep, thank you. Thank you, someone did that for me. Okay, let's see. So what can you do now? Juniors, you need to start researching your college list and taking notes. You can write your activity list. It is possible when the Common App launches in August that they will change the character counts a little bit, but in general, you're asked to report your activities in a very similar format year to year. So you can start taking notes and kind of taking an audit of your activities. The next thing is you could brainstorm your main essay topic. Like I said, within a week, I hope to have it. You will definitely see it on my blog. If you add your email to my form I put in the chat, you'll be receiving my newsletters, and I will be immediately telling people when those are confirmed. And also you can create a timeline, which was what I talked about earlier. You can sit down and say, I have this many months until senior year. What do I want to accomplish each month? I know I'll be gone in July for camp or a job or a trip or whatever. So that doesn't even count because I need to clear my head during July. All right, hypotheticals here, but look at your year, look at your months ahead of you and see what you want to tackle each month. If you are in 9th or 10th grade or any middle school parents, focus on academics and activities. It's pretty simple. Focus on school, focus on activities. Those two things not only are healthy to do, they will make you happy and fulfilled, but they will serve you well in the college admissions process as well. Take notes, younger students, okay? So I'm not saying you have to fill out an application by any stretch, but start a Google Doc or a Word doc on your computer and just start taking some notes because we do tend to forget the details. Okay, so I want to leave you with some of my big thoughts. Like if I had just a few minutes with someone in an elevator to tell, like to get from the 10th floor to the lobby and they said, I want to apply to college, what do I need to keep in mind? These are kind of my big headlines, okay? The first one is this. It is a marathon, not a sprint, okay? A marathon, not a sprint. I do work with people who have to do a sprint. I heard from a senior a week ago who had not started college applications. Okay, this student is getting it done. It is, it's not ideal. This student is aware of that, but this student is applying and there's still colleges accepting applications. But if you think about your process as a longer process, you will do very well. Now you see a number at the bottom of the page, 196. What is that? So I do a countdown planner for my private coaching students, and I popped into that today and I thought, how many days until August 1st? Now, August 1st is like game day. It's the Super Bowl of college admissions, meaning the Common App launches and you can start applying. There are 196 days between today and August 1st. That's a lot of days. There's a lot of time between now and then. Time to thrive in school, enjoy your friends, do fun things, do what you love, but keep in mind that we are starting to count down till August 1st, and you do want to make use of your time. Another big tip, character and a good roommate. Now, what does this mean? A lot of times people will say to me, what's the secret sauce in college admissions? What are they really looking for? The first one is character. We hear this a lot from college admissions officers. They say, we are looking for strong character. And there are many ways this comes across in an application. Through service that you do, through how you carry yourself in the application process, what you choose to write about. Character is something that is important. The second one, this is one of my new favorite tips. So one of my students was at one of the Ivy League colleges doing a tour, and they said, the admissions officer told us they're looking for good roommates. And I thought that is the most beautiful statement I've heard in a long time. So think about that. Would you be a good roommate? Think about that. Let that simmer for a sec. Are you going to get it if your roommate loves loud music? Are you going to be able to talk and resolve conflict? Are you going to be able to say, hey, I'm a night person, you're a morning person, so could we figure out a way to make this work? Life and college comes with conflict. It's not whether you encounter conflict, it's how you deal with conflict. All right, so think about those two things. Okay, the other thing is you need fuel in the tank. So students, look at these two pictures, okay, and think about which fuel tank do you think is going to serve you better in running your car? What would make you feel better? Looking at that empty tank on the left, I get anxious when I see that, or the one on the right. Clearly, the answer is you need a full tank of gas to get to the finish line. So I like to say that I've had parents approach me way too early. I had a 5th grade parent approach me last year and say, could you start working with my student? And I said, I will not, I cannot. The reason is if we start stressing our students out way too young, they are going to burn out. They will not have enough fuel to get to the finish line. So in order to have enough fuel to get to the finish line, you need to think about it. Okay. So you need to think about how will you keep your tank full? Okay. What makes you happy? You're going to need breaks. You're going to need to go for a walk or a run or a coffee with a friend, or, make sure you get on that family vacation that you look forward to all year. I've had students who have had to apply throughout their family vacations and they do it, and I don't mind, and I'll help anyone, but it breaks my heart a little bit because I do want students to also enjoy life, and that's important too. So think about timing. Okay, so I have a free essay planner and I have a bunch of tips and worksheets I'd love to share with you. So you can scan this with your phone. I'm going to show it to you again in a minute. If you want my follow-up, it's totally optional. I'll also leave you with my favorite quote: reading great writing inspires great writing. What I mean by that is I know you have a lot of reading to do for school, and it's exhausting. And when you get home at night, the last thing you want to do is read. So I'm not saying go hang out in your room and read for the next 6 months, but try to read some creative writing before you start writing your essay. I do find that if we get our brain moving in a creative way like that, it helps us be more creative. Okay, so a couple more points before we get to the questions. I do run a bunch of group classes, and Nadia, I spoke to Nadia earlier today, and I've thought for a long time about adding this what I call junior year boost, kind of a boot camp, let's meet monthly and attack each part of the application process. I am putting it out there. If I have enough students, I will think about starting something like that in February or March, where I'm teaching this in a group setting. Otherwise, I will be doing subject specific classes, and I do private coaching as well. Okay, so I will read a couple of examples of what I call rockstar essays. But first, I do want to go to question and answer, just if anyone has questions, because I want to make sure we answer those, and then we can close on maybe a couple of examples if we have time. So if you have questions, if you're willing to show your camera and ask me the questions, I'd love to hear it. If you're not comfortable, you can also put it in the chat. Any questions?
I actually have a question.
Sure.
My question is, when you say activities, is the activities list, does that like span the years that the student has been in high school, or is it geared towards more like the upperclassmen years? Like, for example, if the student has did a lot of volunteer work or whatnot in ninth grade, 10th grade, junior year, and maybe a challenge because the course load is a little challenging, would that be taken into account, or they need to kind of be consistent throughout the years?
So basically, the activities that count on a college application are 8th going into 9th grade and forward. So it's high school, okay? So it's not like you can't say in 6th grade I won the geography bee, like that doesn't count. Now, I like to try to, if there's something important that a student did before high school, if there's any way I can help them word it in the activity list, if there's a similar activity, we can pop it in there. There's a way to do it. But for the most part, you are reporting 8th into 9th and forward, okay? So if your question is, once they get stressed, they can't do as much, that's fine. But you do want to try to stay somewhat active, even if it's hobbies. In addition to what you did, they ask you how many hours per week and how many weeks per year. So if you're doing a school club and you're just going an hour a week, they're going to know that. Whereas if you're doing, let's say, Taekwondo, some kids do, and they're there 20 hours a week, that also makes a statement. They're not auditing. It's, a lot of times students get stressed out. And I'm like, nobody's auditing you, but you can't say you did 10 things 40 hours a week because there aren't enough hours in the week. But I like to get creative. I mean, sometimes there's a class you take in school that can be reported on the activity list because the transcript doesn't tell the whole story. Great example there is band or orchestra. You can certainly talk about that because most band and orchestra students also did lessons prior or they were in middle school bands. So we can sort of stretch that out. You don't want to do nothing. I do work with students on transfer applications. And when I meet students for the first time as a transfer application, in other words, I never met them before and their friends send them to me, I do typically see lackluster activity lists. And I do think that colleges are taking note of that. So I think it's important to stay active if you can, to the extent that you can. There's, like I said, there are colleges for everyone, and there are colleges, on the competitive level from here to here, from all over the board. So there's always a place to go that will be a good fit, but you can't go through high school, do 0 activities and expect to get into a competitive college. That would not happen. So.
Thank you.
Sure. Let's see. I see something in the chat. What is something, I'll read out loud. I just won't say who said it because it was sent to me personally.
Yeah, I was like, I don't see it.
I know. It's okay. It says to Amy, so that's fine. What is something we students can do in our essays that may make our essays stand out, be unique in front of colleges? Great question. So we're going to cover that a little more in the spring, but it's literally anything about you that you love to do. I like to start brainstormings with this question. If you had to complete the sentence, I am obsessed with blank, that might be a topic. Okay, because usually students, their eyes light up, they get excited about something. And I'm happy to read a few approved to share examples after the Q&A, and that may spark some ideas, but think about something that you love to do and that you could use to tell a big story about you. If you start writing it and it's one paragraph, that's not a college essay. That's just an idea. There's an example I like to share. I share this in one of my classes that I do where I was at a book publishing conference once and writers were talking about how they're always scared to share their ideas because they don't want someone to steal their idea. So the speaker said to me, he said, Amy, if I were to ask you to write a book about a Danish prince, could you deliver Hamlet? Okay, so think about that. That's a book by Shakespeare, Hamlet. It's about a Danish prince. Now, there are 15 of us on this call. If each one of us were given the assignment, write about a Danish prince, we'd each be writing a totally different subject. So if you write about your love for bubblegum and why you've got a bubbly personality, and again, I'm making this up, it's going to be very different than the next student. And again, I'm happy to read a handful of topics, but you can write about anything, but you want it to fit you. You want to think about your college application as a number of pieces that go together to create you. So if your essay is like way out there and it just doesn't represent who you are, you'll be raising red flags. Okay, so you want to write something that kind of makes sense for who you are, what you're about, and your transcript sort of supports some of the choices you've made, your activities support the choices you've made. So it's just a part of your story. But to stand out, you want to be polished, you want to be tight, and you want to do a lot of what we call show, don't tell. So that means no declarative statements, things like I'm athletic, I'm hardworking. Anybody can say that, but only I can say, and again, making this up as I go along, on the I'm athletic, I run 30 miles a week and I buy a new pair of sneakers every 2 months because the rubber runs out on the bottom, and, I sweat through my clothes so much that it takes 2 days for them to dry out. I'm showing you how I'm athletic. I'm not saying I'm athletic, and showing is a lot more powerful. What other questions do you guys have?
Anyone have any questions?
Do you guys want to hear a few examples of essays, or do you want to wait until spring? Why don't you put it in the chat if you're interested? I'll read some. If not, happy to wrap it up and call it a night. Either way is fine. But if there's interest, I'm happy to read some essays. Excerpts, I should say. Yes. Okay. It's usually the favorite part of the presentation. So yes, I will read some examples. If you need to sign off, again, I put in the chat the link to the form. If you want to fill that out, you'll get my follow-up materials. I'll send you some resources. You'll be on my newsletter list. You can unsubscribe anytime, and you'll just kind of hear about some important tips. But let me go ahead, read a few examples. I'm not going to read the whole essay. So let me give you a couple of caveats before I start reading. Number one is I'm not going to read the entire essay because, again, we'd be here all night. What I want to do is read a few excerpts to maybe spark some creativity in your mind. And maybe you'll say, ooh, that gives me an idea. Now, the reason I say that is because I had a parent once who said, I didn't get the context of all these essays. So I'm not trying to give you the full context. I'm trying to sort of just like what I call boom, boom, boom it. Give you some quick, creative ideas. And then the second thing, I will reiterate that every single student, I'm reading you here, I'm not saying names or schools, they're all over the country. But each of these students has given me permission to share their writing to inspire good writing. So let me read you a few. I had a student who came to me and said, Amy, I love country songs and my truck. Those two things, those are my favorite things. So I said, why don't you write an essay like it's a country song? Give me a lyric and then something about you. So he picked a country song that he loved, and each line had something to do with this part of his story. So, oops, sorry about that. Little feet can't reach the pedal. I surrounded myself with wheels, bicycles, skateboards, dirt bikes, cars, and trucks. Friday nights, my dad took me to the speedway to watch sprint cars race the track and drift through the corners, somehow maintaining control while sliding completely sideways through tight turns with 20 cars on top of them. So he goes through in this essay, this truck. So he remembers being a little boy and climbing up into the big truck with his dad, and how they would take the trash miles away to a dump just to spend time together. And how it was like a big part of his life and his relationship with his dad. This student sort of hit a bit of a roadblock, if you will. He had a bad injury in a sport, and he ended up getting really kind of down about it, and comes home from school one day, and his dad tosses him the keys and he says, she's yours now. The truck is yours. So he goes out to the garage. He didn't have a lot of money to repair it in a repair shop. So he learned on YouTube, he's repairing it himself. He's really putting so much love into this truck. When he gets his license, he gets to drive it. And then he talks all about this love of cars. So at the very end, he says, some 90,000 miles and 12 years later, my 2008 Ram and I have gone through everything together, from being my first truck to learning to drive to taking it to school on my first day as a senior. So I loved that essay. I just thought that was such a sweet essay, and it was very authentic to him. Another example, performing did not always come easily to me. In fact, performing was the best way to trigger sweaty hands, a racing heart, and a sick stomach. The first time I played piano was in front of a crowd when I was in kindergarten. Confident with hours of perfecting Yankee Doodle Dandy, I sat down at the piano, placed my music, and completely froze. After what seemed like an hour, I played. If only I had known the journey of stress and anxiety of performing in front of people that was to come. Fast forward to high school when I prepare for yet another performance, this time on grass. Soccer cleats, check. Shin guards, check. Gloves to prevent blisters on my hands from my autoimmune system, check. It was bad enough that I was playing soccer in front of a crowd, but having to wear black winter gloves when it was 60+ degrees outside brought it to a new level, and not in a good way. So this student talks about how she had this thing where she had to wear, this situation where she had to wear these gloves, and she was embarrassed. So she said, later, my performance anxiety continued at school. So she talked about how she was embarrassed to talk in class. She ended up joining a public speaking club and becoming a mentor to other students to help them speak. So at the very end, she says, I'm able to use the tools I've gained from conquering my own anxiety to help others overcome theirs. I wouldn't say my performance anxiety is totally gone, but I definitely have new tools to push to get through to the other side. So what I love about that essay is we meet her in kindergarten at a piano recital, and she's showing us this picture of how she was so nervous and so anxious. But this performance anxiety, how it followed her through different channels of her life. I like to see a student talk about different channels if it works. Okay, so And she also acknowledges at the end, I'm not perfect. I haven't totally conquered this. Again, that's keeping it real. All right. Let's see if I can read one more. Okay, I love this one. Okay. 8 eggs, 4 pieces of bacon, oatmeal with peanut butter and strawberries, a tall glass of chocolate milk. To most, this menu is a heart attack. To me, it's breakfast. Throughout my life, I've been frustrated by my size. I am naturally an ectomorph, which is characterized as thin, tall, and weak. At 14, I was only 95 pounds. While visiting my grandma, she announced with her southern drawl, "You look like a twig." My entire family laughed at me. On the outside, I laughed with them, but I've never experienced so much internal pain. That night I cried, not because they were mean, but because they were right. A few months passed and the insult continued to burn inside of me. I had to make a change. I studied transformations on YouTube, skinny to ripped, 6-month transformation, new body overnight, jacked in 30 days. All of these men had exactly what I wanted. Why couldn't I achieve that? Was it my workout regimen, my diet, my genetics? After consulting my pediatrician, I learned that I've been, quote, blessed with a supercharged thyroid, the body's metabolic regulator. To the 172 million Americans on a diet, this is the holy grail. To me, it's an Achilles heel. So he talks about this a bit more, and he was applying for engineering programs, and he talks about basically how he completely re-engineered his own body. He talks about what he did to gain muscle, to gain fat, all the different things he wanted to do. So at the end, he says, "The African proverb on my bedroom wall reminds me every day, if there are no enemies within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. The enemy of self-consciousness is gone, and the resilience I've built by weightlifting has given me confidence to tackle any obstacle, pound by pound, rep by rep, inch by inch, and I will never stop." Okay, so let's stop there just because I'm going to read a lot more examples in the spring, but I hope those give you some ideas about what you might, maybe something you might write about. And really anything goes. I know in Montgomery County, you're given rubrics where you have to write about this, don't write about that. And it's like, write this, don't write that. College essays are different. You could write about anything, literally anything on the planet. And I get really excited when I hear about new and different topics because I could have 10 students who are writing about the same thing over the years and they're covering it totally differently, but there are constantly new ideas popping up as well. And almost every essay has its own, every essay has a signature. It's got its own unique touch, and that's what you want yours to have as well. So I will make the students on this call the same promise I make every single student I meet, okay? You can shine like the brightest star. I promise you. There's nothing you can't do. Do not, negative self-talk will get you nowhere. And I promise you that if you give it the time and you make a timeline and you really kind of go through some drafts, you'll do great. So I'm going to hang on till the last person hangs up. So if you have any questions at all, I'm here, and I'm hoping to see you again in the spring where we'll dive deeper into the main essay brainstorm do's and don'ts that I mentioned. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy. Anyone else have any other final questions before we end our meeting for today? It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining. I actually do have one more, and this may tie into what someone else has a question for. It may be in the top of their minds. So let's say someone's a junior right now, and then they ended up discovering something, an activity that they want to do in senior year. How would that, if they would be writing about it or included in the senior, their activities, is that going to be oh, that's a red flag? Why are they doing it in just a senior year? Or is it still something that is valuable for the overall admissions?
No, and actually I'm going to pull up the Common App for a second because I'd like to show you guys I want to show you something. So no, definitely not. I mean, interests change. No, that's not a red flag at all. I think that's totally fine. But just keep in mind that if you apply to a rolling admissions school in August, okay, so let's say University of Pittsburgh, for example, rolling admissions, 0 supplements. So as soon as your activity list and main essay is done, just open this, you can apply. So people apply August 1st, and a lot of times they accepted by August 15th. That's wonderful. Okay. Kansas, I think, is another school that a lot of times, people Anyway, this is just a mock account, by the way, that I use so I can do stuff like this. So this is not a real student. It's got my dog's name, Zoe. So use this as I go through. So this is the Common App. This is what you'll, again, it's up now if you want to look. You do not need to do this until August 1st. Okay. So you'll have your colleges, your Common App. You can search any college. There's financial aid stuff here. So what I want to show you is this. So there's a profile where you'll answer just some basic questions about your family, where you live, demographics. It's just very basic stuff. You will fill out stuff about your parents. So parents, siblings. Okay. Again, pretty straightforward. Then education. So you'll put your school in, and that's why I tell you to get that unofficial transcript, because many schools will ask you to enter it. Okay, so different things there, but this is what I want to, and then there's the writing section, obviously, but again, don't worry about it. That's going to come later. This is the activity section. Okay, so I just put in some mock activities. This is what you do. It's a type, so this is a drop-down menu. Okay, and then the position or leadership, you have 50 characters. It's short. Organization name here, and then you describe it. Again, this is not a lot of information. You may be, you may be doing soccer since kindergarten, and you've got a very tiny space to explain it. Then you're checking the years that you did it in. Okay, so that's why you can't really say 6th grade. It's not here. It's just not. Okay. Time of participation, hours spent per week, weeks spent per year. I intend to do this in college, yes or no. Don't stress. That's just pick a few and say it. Okay. Here's a hobby I put in just to show people. It doesn't have to be, the business club. Avid reader since 3rd grade. I enjoy primarily historical fiction and nonfiction genres, but explore many more. Read 3 books a month for fun and independent learning. Completed 21,000 pages this summer. Okay, I just made this up because students get so stressed out about not having all these clubs. And I said, if you're spending your time reading, talk about it. Okay, so when you hit preview in the Common App, this is what the colleges are going to see. It's not a lot of information. This is what you get to report. A few lines, that's it. So they're forcing you to really condense your description. So you really want to make sure that this wording is tight. It's got to be beautifully tight. This is your college resume. So anyway, I think it's helpful to see what the finish line looks like, because then, it doesn't.
A little daunting.
No, it's not that hard. I'm telling you, you could, the thing that will take you, you're going to be doing your writing in a Google Doc, right? So that'll be edited, that'll be copied and pasted once it's done. I think the most time consuming part of the Common App is the colleges who require you to enter your transcript. It is a pain. It's a pain. It's a pain. It's a pain. I wish they didn't do that, and some colleges don't require, many do. I'll be honest, I did that for my kids, my 3 boys, because I just felt like, you guys focus on the writing. I can't write for you, so this I can do. I can enter your schools, your classes. And I think the reasons colleges do that is because they can do a quick pre-read before, maybe they don't get the transcript from the school so quickly. So it's just, you have to enter it. I think it's a pain. I wish that they would just let you scan in your unofficial transcript. I think that would be a simpler way, but that is the most time consuming thing. That took me 2 hours or more for each kid to do. And then I had to proof it, and it was a pain. Yeah.
Really? And it's just high school, right?
It's anything on the high school transcript. So languages, if something, something from middle school that goes on your high school transcript,
Yeah.
that would be like health or
Algebra.
Exactly. Yeah. Languages. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes. Languages, certain math. English used to, but it doesn't. Like honors English used to be, but I don't think that does anymore.
Anyone have any other questions? We have like 6 minutes until 8:30.
I've got one more question here. Okay. Do colleges look at our quarter grades, or they only look at finals and semester grades? Finals and semester grades. No, it's not quarter grades. It's just semester grades, because it's your transcript. Okay. So they see your transcript. So I can again show you the Common App. So they can't see your quarter grades because your quarter grades are not on your transcript. So under courses and grades, yeah, this is what it looks like. So 9th grade, Add ninth grade. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you enter it. So you're entering school year, grading scale, schedule, like it's, yeah, semesters. For MCPS, it's
Semesters.
semesters. Yeah. Good question though.
So
Yeah.
then that one Common App essay, does that get pushed to all the schools that you would like to apply to in the Common App? And then those schools have the individual supplemental essays.
Some do, some don't. Most do. So yes, every school sees it. Now, I don't know, we may be getting into the weeds a little too much here, but
I'm sorry.
No. I could literally talk for 15 hours on it. I love talking about this. No, it was more me like, how far do I go with this? Okay, so yes, every school gets it. And so the bottom line is, as a student, you're presenting your number one headline, your number one best story. So you don't want to be changing it up. Now, the only exception, I have had on occasion students say to me, I want this one school to see, I want to change a line for the school because I have a support point. Like I had someone who wanted to change something just for UMD because there was something they had done in College Park, like an activity that related to their main essay. So I said, okay, go for it, but be careful when you go to apply to Maryland because you hit send separately for each school.
Mhm.
So I said, when you change out your essay for Maryland, apply to Maryland and then change it right back because I didn't want to see them, send another school because in my longer presentation about the do's and don'ts, like the College of Charleston told me that there was a student who uploaded breakup texts instead of an essay one year. So, you want to proof these things. You want to, my last step
I'm
is
sorry.
sit at the kitchen table with a highlighter, make sure, so yeah, you want to be careful about customizing, but in theory you could customize for each school, but you
Oh,
don't
so
want to.
tedious.
It's tedious unless it like really, really, really has to be done. You want to come up with your best story and serve it up to everybody. Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Good question. Yeah.
Thank you. You've
Sure.
really enlightened us. It brings us a little bit more comfortable through the process, just a little bit more. I feel we may
Yeah.
have more questions in the spring as we get closer towards the final time of the junior year and closer to, at least I know I do. I have a bunch of questions. And so anyone have any final thoughts or inputs for Amy or even for the PTSA before we say our goodbyes? Such a quiet group today. I think it's just as a Tuesday feels like a Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because yesterday was a day off.
Yes.
Well, like I said, I'll hang around for a few minutes until everyone hangs up. And I'm delighted to talk to you all. And I wish you all the best of luck in your process. If I see you again, great. If I don't, just the best of luck. I'm sure you'll all do very well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm just going to end the recording here. So thank you again, Amy.
Sure.
Let me see. And I hope you'll have a great day.
And this recording